The spiritual sickness of living in Ireland in the 2020s has never been more perfectly encapsulated than a video I saw today on TikTok. In this video, it's just panning down a pavement here in Dublin, and it shows about 200 people standing in this massive unmoving queue. They're shuffling forward like cattle, wrapped in coats and jackets and sitting on the walls, all waiting to hand over their actual hard-earned money for disposable cardboard solar eclipse glasses. I saw it on TikTok earlier today. I was doing the exact thing I tell myself not to do, where I wake up and instead of looking out the window or just existing in silence for 5 minutes, I immediately grabbed the phone after my alarm went off and I bathed my retinas in the absolute algorithmic brain rot before I even had the dignity to brush my teeth. So I'm lying there completely horizontal, my spine curved like a cooked shrimp, just swiping, and this video pops up. It's just hundreds of grown adults queuing for these flimsy, mass-produced pieces of landfill material. Glasses that they're going to put on their faces for exactly 1 minute, look up at our sun. I suppose we'll see it today because the sun is out, but typically Ireland has an overcast sky, and then immediately put these glasses in a municipal bin. And these glasses literally look like those 3D movie glasses they hand out at the cinema in 2008 when Avatar came out. They are essentially two pieces of tinted plastic glued to some paper, and they were charging something stupid like €8 a pop for them when you can usually get a box of 10 for £6 on Amazon. And the most deeply Irish, darkly comedic part of this whole scene was what the sky itself looked like in this video. If you looked up, it was a flat, unbroken sheet of slate grey clouds. It looked like the underside of a damp mattress. It was the exact shade of grey that permanently exists over Dublin, typically from October to May. Now, in fairness, this year has been a bit of an outlier because we've had a really good summer. The sun could have been physically exploding up there and we wouldn't have known the difference. But it didn't matter. The sky being obscured did not matter to a single person in that line. The queue just kept growing. After watching this, I eventually dragged myself out of bed and I went into the office. I work hybrid, so going into the office is this weird performative social ritual now. And literally everyone in the canteen was talking about this exact video and the event of this eclipse as well. They were standing around the machine, holding their little ceramic mugs, acting completely baffled by it. Everyone was performing this massive routine of superiority. It was just a chorus of, oh, mind your eyes now later on. Be sure to not look directly at the sun. And, it had me thinking, like, can you believe the state of these people buying cardboard glasses? And I even had a colleague ask me, what's wrong with society? People are such sheep. And I'm standing there, nodding along, participating in the office banter, saying, yeah, it's crazy, absolute madness. And in my head, I'm just thinking, we're the exact same as them. We're all talking about the exact same video. We're all reacting to the exact same algorithmic trigger. We're just participating in the bandwagon from a slightly different, more cynical angle. We aren't actually superior. We're just doing the meta commentary version of standing in the queue. It really got me thinking about this pathological reflex we have in this country. We are, without a shadow of a doubt, the biggest bandwagoners on the face of the planet, and it goes way, way deeper than these eclipse glasses. It's this hyperactive, deeply ingrained virus that takes over the national consciousness the second there is even a mild disruption to the daily routine. Think back to the Beast from the East a few years ago, or literally anytime Met Éireann decides to issue a status red warning because there's a bit of a breeze rolling in off the Atlantic. The sky gets a fraction darker than usual, the wind picks up a little bit, and suddenly every functioning adult in the country loses their absolute minds. They abandon any sense of civilised decorum and sprint to SuperValu or Tesco and violently hoard Brennan's slice pan and every single batch of toilet roll in sight. I remember being in a shop during one of those warnings, and it looked like the dying days of the Roman Empire. You had old men in expensive Patagonia fleeces and tailored shirts practically elbowing pensioners out of the way to get their hands on this last bag of Brennan's batch bread. The bread aisles were stripped bare in 40 minutes. People who hadn't even eaten a carbohydrate since 2015 were suddenly buying 8 loaves of white bread operating under the absolute delusion that they were going to be trapped in their semi-detached houses in rat mines for 6 months without government assistance. And then we saw the exact same psychological virus during COVID with the toilet paper hoard. People were buying industrial quantities of toilet roll, stacking it in their spare bedrooms like it was going to become the new global currency after society collapsed. They were treating Andrex like it was gold bullion. Think about the fuel crisis back in March that we had. Someone posts a completely unverified rumour on Twitter saying that the petrol stations are going to run dry by midnight. Just a few random Twitter accounts, and it spreads like wildfire. A few tweets that say, "My mate works in distribution, pumps will be empty by tomorrow." Within 45 minutes, you've grown men in Audi A4s queuing for 3 hours at an Apple Green out by the M50. They're sitting in their cars, burning actual fuel to wait in line to buy fuel, violently honking at each other, just to be hijacked by this phantom panic. From the outside, it looks like we are a nation of easily manipulated idiots. It looks like we lack basic critical thinking skills. It looks like a simple logistical issue where people are just aggressively preparing for a disruption in the supply chain. But if you actually put this through just regular lens, if you strip away the cultural context and look at the raw biology of what's happening to our nervous system in those moments, it makes complete terrifying sense. We do not queue for the bread or the fuel or the eclipse glasses because we actually need them. We queue for them because our nervous systems are completely shot, and your manufactured crisis is the only thing that makes us feel physically alive anymore. Look at how we actually live on a daily basis. Society has completely optimized all of the natural friction out of human existence. You wake up on a memory foam mattress, you sit in a temperature controlled box, you stare at a glowing rectangle for 8 hours to send emails that don't actually matter to anyone. You order food off a delivery app so you don't even have to experience the mild social friction of looking a cashier in the eye and saying hello. You go home, you watch a simulation of someone else's life on a streaming service, and you go to sleep. Even for our parents' generation, they spend more time on YouTube Shorts and TikTok than we do in our day while working normally. We live in an incredibly safe society. There's no predators hunting us. There's no imminent physical danger. We don't have to chop wood to survive the winter. We don't have to hunt for meat because there is no physical danger. Your brain doesn't know what to do with the baseline, what am I even trying to say? The baseline anxiety of just being a living creature. I always look at the nervous system like a bank account of V-Bucks. Every day you wake up with a finite amount of biological currency. A set amount of energy that you can use to process the world and handle stress. But instead of spending those V-Bucks on physical survival, on carrying heavy things, on building shelter, on interacting with our physical environment, we spend them on absorbing the digital trauma of 8 billion people through our phones. You wake up, and before you are even fully conscious, you open the portal to the underworld. Instantly, your brain is processing a war in a country you don't live in. It's processing a passive-aggressive Slack message from your manager. It's processing a highly edited photo of someone you haven't seen since secondary school looking impossibly happy on a beach in Dubai. It's processing 14 different notifications demanding your immediate attention. Your biological hardware, the actual caveman blueprint inside your skull, does not know the difference between the physical stress of being hunted by a saber-toothed tiger and the digital stress of opening your banking app and seeing a lower number than you expected. The biological reaction is exactly the same. Cortisol spikes, your heart rate elevates, your digestion slows down. You enter fight or flight mode while physically lying perfectly still on your bed. So you go out into the world. You try to act normal. Go to your office, you sit at your desk, you listen to a podcast on 1.5 times speed while simultaneously trying to format a spreadsheet, voluntarily fracturing your consciousness into a million different pieces. You are splitting your mind across so many different dimensions that you aren't actually present in any of them. You're physically sitting in Dublin, but your brain is in the spreadsheet, and it's in the podcast, and it's in the WhatsApp group chat deciding where to get pints on Friday. You're completely drained. You're running on 0 V-Bucks. You're just vibrating with this constant low-level hum of modern dread. You're exhausted from doing nothing physical. And because our baseline anxiety is so artificially high, because we're constantly operating at 99% capacity, just trying to survive the sheer volume of information being blasted into our retinas every second of the day. The moment a real world event happens, a storm, a fuel shortage, a solar eclipse, the system just completely snaps. When that rumour about the bread running out hits, for one glorious shining moment, the infinite complexity of modern life disappears. You don't have to worry about your career trajectory, or your credit score, or the fact you haven't felt genuine joy in 6 months, or the creeping dread of your own mortality. Your entire existence is immediately reduced to a single, primal, highly defined objective. Get the bread, get the fuel, stand in the queue, don't miss out. It is a twisted, sick form of mindfulness. True rest comes from singular consciousness, doing one thing with absolute focus. When you're sitting in a 3-hour traffic jam to buy €20 worth of unleaded petrol, you're actually experiencing singular consciousness. Your brain finally has a tangible physical problem to solve. The free-floating anxiety finally finds a concrete target. It's like a massive pressure valve releasing in the collective psyche of the country. We actually love the panic because the panic simplifies the world. And that brings me back to the eclipse glasses, and why 200 people stood in the cold, or the heat today because it's 27 degrees, for something they couldn't even use. There's a deeper layer to this, which is the absolute crushing alienation that defines how we live right now. For 300,000 years, human beings survived by sticking to the tribe. If you were a hunter-gatherer and you saw 50 people from your tribe suddenly running in one direction, you didn't stop and evaluate the statistical probability of a threat. You didn't pull out a clipboard and do a risk assessment. You just ran. Because the guy who stopped to think about it got eaten by a leopard. We are biologically hardwired to mirror the crowd. Your brain punishes you with stress hormones if you are left out of the group, because in the ancestral environment, isolation meant absolute certain death in the wilderness. Now take that ancient, incredibly powerful survival mechanism and drop it into a modern society where we are more isolated than any generation in the history of the human race. We don't have tribes anymore. We have followers. We have group chats that we can mute because they give us too much anxiety. We walk around our own cities with noise-cancelling headphones on, aggressively avoiding eye contact with our neighbours. We are self-sufficient, individual economic units sitting in our little pods, ordering Just Eat, completely alienated from the people physically surrounding us. We are replacing real life with simulations because the simulations are safe. We swipe on Tinder because approaching a girl in public carries the real physical risk of being rejected to your face. We grind for fake achievements in video games because building something real takes years and nobody claps for you when you're laying the foundation. But that tribal instinct is still there. It is still screaming in our DNA. We are so desperately, pathetically starved for a shared reality. We are starved for a collective experience. We just want to feel like we're part of a tribe that's doing the exact same thing at the exact same time. So when the algorithm decides that Wednesday is solar eclipse day, it hijacks that exact tribal circuit. You see the videos on TikTok, you hear the banter in the office canteen, and your primal brain signals a massive alarm. It tells you that the tribe is gathering in the village square, and if you do not go down there and get the cardboard glasses, or talk about it, or go out and see it, you're going to be left behind. You'll be cast out of the tribe. That's what the queue in town today was really about. It wasn't about astronomy, wasn't about looking at the sky. Half those people didn't even know what an eclipse was until the day before. It was a desperate attempt to not be left out of the village square. We buy into the bandwagon because it is a simulation of community. Standing in a line of 200 strangers feels like you are participating in society. It feels like you are part of a collective human event. But it's completely fake. It's a simulation. You aren't bonding with the person in front of you. You're both just staring at your phones, scrolling, taking photos of the queue to post on your Instagram stories, trying to extract a microscopic hit of validation from the algorithm. You are substituting the real physical risk of building an actual community for the safe commercial transaction of buying a plastic prop. Technically, it's digital calories. It's like eating cotton candy when you're starving. It tastes sweet for a second, but it leaves you sicker and emptier than you were before. Corporations and social media platforms understand this biological weak point perfectly, and they weaponize our fear of missing out to extract cash from our pockets. And listen, I'm speaking about all of this with a lot of authority right now. Sitting here in front of a camera, analysing the crowd like I'm some enlightened stoic philosopher operating on a higher plane of existence. But I need to pause the tape right here and be completely, brutally honest. Actually, let me backtrack because I don't even want to sound preachy. I'm the biggest hypocrite walking the streets of this city. I was standing in the office kitchen judging the people in the video, talking about how society is completely lost. But let me tell you exactly what my behaviour was during that fuel panic back in March. Let me expose my absolute lack of spine. I was in my apartment on Tuesday night. I was actively trying to be good. I had my phone in another room. I was reading a physical book, trying to practice singular consciousness, genuinely trying to be present and unplugged. I was feeling very proud of myself, very zen. Then I went to the kitchen to get a glass of water and I checked my phone. I had a WhatsApp message from a mate and it just said, the apple grain is completely dry. Prices are going up by 40% tomorrow and they won't get fuel in over the weekend. It's absolute chaos out there. Now let's look at the objective facts of my life that moment. I had half a tank of petrol in my car. I work remotely most of the week. If I was really stuck, public transport would have got me to my job. I barely even drive unless I'm going to see my parents on the weekend. I had zero logistical need for fuel. I could have gone the week without visiting a petrol station. But the exact second I read that text, my heart rate did spike. The caveman brain completely took the wheel. My logical prefrontal cortex just shut down entirely. I literally threw my book on the couch, put my shoes on, grabbed my keys and sprinted down the stairs to my car like I was being deployed in Warzone. I drove out onto the M50 at 8 p.m. at night and I sat in a queue of idling, exhaust spewing cars for 45 solid minutes. I was sitting there listening to a podcast, aggressively refreshing Twitter every 30 seconds to see if anyone else was talking about the pumps drying up. Just splitting my consciousness, burning my nervous system to the ground. And when I finally got to the pump, I managed to squeeze air out of it. The tank was empty. And I stood there on the concrete forecourt at this apple green, holding the pump, smelling the fumes, surrounded by other panicked idiots around me staring at their phones. And I realised I'd actually just wasted an hour of my finite biological existence because I couldn't handle the phantom anxiety of missing out on a crisis. I completely surrendered my dignity to what was on Twitter. I felt like a clown, to be honest. I drove home in complete silence, no music, no podcast. Just the crushing realisation that I am infected by the exact same brain rot that I sit here and criticise. I'm not a guru. I don't have this figured out. Anyone who tells you they've completely escaped the modern matrix is either lying to you or trying to sell you some 6-week coaching program. I'm a fellow patient in the hospital. I'm sitting in the bed right next to you, just trying to read my own chart, figure out why I keep doing this to myself. But I think realising how susceptible we are, recognising the biological trap we keep falling into, is the only way to actually start fighting back against it. You have to wake up and realise that your attention and your anxiety are the most heavily hunted resources on the planet right now. The algorithms, the corporations, the news cycles, these shops on Dame Street selling solar lenses, they don't want you to be calm. A calm, grounded human being who is content with just walking outside and feeling the breeze on their face does not buy €8 cardboard glasses. They don't concern themselves with fads and trends. A calm human being does not hoard sliced pan. A calm human being doesn't sit in a fuel queue for an hour panicking about petrol running out when we knew that would never be the case. They need you divided. They need you terrified of missing out. Because a panicked brain is an easily controllable brain. If you are anxious, you'll buy things to soothe the anxiety. You'll buy the glasses to feel part of the event. You'll buy the bread to feel like you have control over your resources. The most rebellious thing you can do right now, the ultimate anti-guru move, isn't to buy a self-help course or start a ridiculously complicated daily routine of 4 a.m. cold plunges and aggressive journaling. You don't need to biohack your life. And you definitely don't need to optimize your sleep cycle with a ring that costs 300 quid. You just need to return to the golden mean. You need to practice singular consciousness. Do one thing at a time. If you're going to stand in a queue, just stand in a queue. Do not pull out your phone to look at a portal to the underworld. TikTok. Feel the physical friction of standing near strangers. Notice the weird way the guy in front of you breathes. Notice how cold your hands are. Let yourself be completely bored. We run from boredom like it's a disease, but boredom is just your brain healing from overstimulation. It is the sound of your nervous system repairing itself. It is your essence, your V-Bucks slowly regenerating. And when the next event happens in this country, because there will be one, it could be in a few months, it could be next week, it could be next year, when the next storm rolls in, when the next viral trend takes over, or the next crisis starts spreading on WhatsApp, try to separate your actual physical needs from your nervous system's tribal panic response. Ask yourself, am I actually in danger of starving? Or is my nervous system just fully empty today? Am I actually going to use this thing? Or am I just terrified of not missing out? We have to stop treating these viral moments as real life. Real life is inherently boring. Real life is carrying groceries up 3 flights of stairs because the lift is broken. It's sitting in a room with a friend and talking for an hour without checking your phone to see if someone more important has texted you. Real life is awkward. It has friction. It has rejection. It has silence. There's no background music, no comment section, and no manufactured hype. I've been trying to force myself into the physical friction of the world this week. It's not easy, and I fail constantly. When I feel the urge to jump on a trend or check what everyone on the internet is panicking about, I just force myself to do a physical task. I'll go make a coffee, and I'll just stand there and watch the water boil. I won't check my notifications on my phone. I won't put my earbuds in and listen to music. I just stand there and let the discomfort of doing nothing wash over. Your brain throws a tantrum when you first do this. It screams for the dopamine. It begs you to open the simulation. It tells you you're wasting time, that you're missing out on important information. But if you just sit in the friction, if you just endure the boredom, the static hiss in your head eventually fades out. You start recovering your energy again. You realize that you don't actually need to be part of the crowd. You don't need them solar glasses. You don't need the bread. You don't need to have an opinion on the viral video. You just need to get a grip on your own singular consciousness. You just need to be where your feet are. Anyway, that's what's been eating at me since I saw that video of the queue. And I've been thinking about it on my drive home from work today. Just trying to figure out how to live a normal, grounded human life in this city without getting swept up in the mass psychosis every time the wind changes direction. Appreciate you guys listening to this. And thanks for watching, I guess. Keep me semi-accountable when I start losing the plot and acting like I'm above it all. Go outside today, look at this grey sky of the sun with your bare eyes. Embrace the friction. Until the next one, see you then.